Before we start this video, I just wanted to make a quick disclaimer that because I am a student of the German language, that not all of the information or German text may be accurate. I apologize for any mistakes that you will see in this video. Also, it's important to note that the test is not the same for everyone. It varies from exam to exam, so there's a very good chance that you won't have some of the same questions or prompts that I got when I was taking the exam. This is only to give you a general idea of what you can expect, not to tell you exactly what you will experience when taking the exam for yourself. Hello and welcome to my little corner of the internet where I set, work towards, and document the progression of my goals. My name is Melanie and I'm so happy to have you with me here today. In today's video, I'm going to be giving my best advice as how to pass the B1 exam. So if you're watching this video, it probably means that you have some interest in taking the B1 German exam. And I myself have passed the exam. I did have to take the listening module twice. That just gives me more experience to share with you. And my goal isn't to give you the advice of somebody who knows this test inside and out or anything like that. Like, I definitely am very far from the perfect test taker, but with that said, I can definitely tell you what I wish I knew beforehand, what you can expect coming into this, and just a general sense of what you need to know in order to be successful moving forward with this test. So I did take the Goethe version of this exam, and you may or may not know that upon taking this exam, it is divided into 4 different modules, and that is listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And I'm going to break down how I did in each module, along with what I remember experiencing during the test, as well as any little useful things that might give you an idea of what to expect that I definitely could have benefited from had I known that this would happen beforehand. Also, just a disclaimer, what I say in this video might not be exactly the same for every test. They don't do the same exact test every single time, so there is a good chance that some changes may apply that will make what I have to say not applicable. So if that happens, my deepest apologies. Just take this whole thing with a grain of salt and just know that this is what somebody who took the B1 exam and eventually passed had as an experience. I'm also going to give my best recommendations of things you can do, which in my opinion will help benefit you as much as possible and helping give you an idea of how to prepare yourself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, listening. So I'm not going to lie, I personally had the hardest time with listening, and that is no big surprise to me because not only is it the most difficult skill in language learning for me, and it has always been, but in addition to that, I'm not the world's best listener because my attention span is not as strong for listening. So sadly, this is the one module that I did not pass on my first attempt. I got a 53 out of 100, which is I'm not proud of at all. However, there were a few things that happened that kind of set me off course on this test. Not to make excuses, I did make a video and I will link that below about why I failed the B1 exam the first time. And it was pretty much just that one module where I was not able to concentrate. And honestly, it's kind of just hard for me to focus on audio text. Like, I can't listen to audiobooks, but I can read and focus moderately well. Even when I listen to podcasts, which I really enjoy doing, I find myself rewinding all the time. So regardless, I came back and I took just the listening module for the second time, and lo and behold, I got a 77, which is once again not incredible, but considering that I didn't do too much to prepare for it in the time between both exams, I would say that it was just the fact that I was able to pay attention and was really focused and had my head in the game for that segment of the exam the second time that made the difference, rather than actually like learning a ton. I mean, I did study. I'm not going to say I didn't study, but it wasn't like some huge transformation in my German comprehension. The difference was really just where my headspace was at. But with that said, I'm still going to tell you what I remember from the exam and what tripped me up and what my best advice is in how to prepare for it. So number 1, don't get tripped up with the first question because they will give you a sample question that's already answered as an example on the test booklet. The whole thing is done with a Scantron which you will need to fill out with a pen, unlike the Scantrons that you likely did growing up for school. But you fill everything out on a Scantron, and there is a sample question that is already answered, so just make sure not to accidentally answer that and throw off your sequence of events. Besides that, they will tell you this, but they tell you pretty fast, and the instructions are on the paper, but when you're there, your nerves can be really racked, and you might not be aware that you have to do this, or that you're told to do this even. So make sure that when they give you the opportunity before they do the reading, that you read the questions and digest what the questions are asking you. And honestly, this part was so difficult for me because the questions went so quickly. They just give you a chance to read it, and I honestly, like, reading that entire thing in the 10 seconds they provide you is very challenging. So you gotta just do your best to read fast enough while still absorbing the meaning that those sentences are giving you. But also, you have to be prepared to listen moments later and to be ready to try to find what you're looking for in the excerpt. So, to the best of my memory, these are the things that I had as questions when I took these exams. At first, there were quick excerpts, which we got to listen to twice, and they gave us some true and false questions and some multiple choice, like ABC, no more than 3 choices on any questions. And they might even try to trip you up a bit, like they definitely try to confuse you with the questions that they're asking, so you have to listen pretty closely. But it's not so hard that, like, if you don't follow what's going on, like, yeah, you'll probably get some wrong, but you'll get enough right to pass. And for the shorter excerpts in the beginning, you can expect to hear things such as announcements made on trains, or a voicemail left by somebody trying to schedule an appointment, or even an advertisement for a children's summer camp. And then right afterwards, you're going to have questions reviewing the details, like where did you need to transfer on the train, or how much was the children's summer camp with the meal plan included, and questions such as that. On part 2 of the listening module, you're only going to get to listen to the audio once, and it is a longer text, so you want to be careful to listen well. And in this part, it's going to be something such as a friend telling their other friend about a trip that they made. I'm pretty sure that both times I took the exam, it was somebody talking to their friend about their vacation. So it might not be that when you take the exam, but it's probably going to be something similar. I remember that they asked questions such as, did she enjoy the food at the restaurant that she went to? Did she have time to visit the beach? Did the family that she spent time with on her vacation have a daughter? Questions like this. And once again, you want to make sure to read the questions before listening to the excerpt so you can listen for these specific things. The third part of the listening exam is actually a discussion between 3 people, and you have to listen to this conversation and select who made which points, which can definitely be a little confusing because you have to be able to distinguish the voices from one another. I'll just say you really have to pay attention and bring your A game in listening and paying attention for this first segment, because in my opinion, it's by far the hardest part of the entire exam. But I know that everybody has different strengths in language learning, so it might not be the case for you. To prepare, my biggest advice would definitely be to just listen to as many B1 preparation videos on YouTube that you can find, because those are really the closest that you can get to an example. I think they use real examples from tests even. Don't quote me on that. But besides that, listen to German as much as you can. I think the Easy German podcast is a great reference here because they speak at around a B1 level for the most part, and they speak clearly, and it's just relatively easy to follow them. Of course, if you can't, then that's okay. You just keep learning. But I'd say that what you listen to during the exam is about the same level of German that is usually heard on the Easy German podcast. And besides that, maybe you can just find some translations of shows and movies that you like on Netflix. But I do think that it's better to listen to German without visual cues when you're studying to take an exam on listening to German without visual cues. With that said, let's move on to reading. So in the first part of the reading module, you essentially are given several articles to read that are all about 5 to 8 paragraphs long. They often have to do with social or political topics, such as the effect of automobiles on the environment and so on, and you are given several multiple choice questions just to ensure that you have a good level of reading comprehension and that you understand what the articles were about. Now, the second part for me was an activity, and I can't say that you'll have the same activity, but it was essentially along the lines of matching the correct pairs together. So, for example, in the exercise that I got, I was given a list of different people and it said what activities they enjoyed and what they were looking for on a vacation. And then we were also given a list of destination advertisements or blurbs, so that way we could pair each person listed with their ideal vacation. Now, you might get something totally different, but it still was a fun little activity that involved not only reading comprehension, but some problem solving as well. In the third part of the reading module, we were given pretty much an opinion piece, and I can't remember if there was a part to read before getting into people's actual opinions, but essentially there was a theme or a topic. So I remember the topic for me in this part was whether if various people thought that smoking should still be legal or not. And then you had various people talking about the pros and cons. Some people thought that nobody should be allowed to do something that harms themselves, while others were concerned that it was a violation of their rights and personal freedoms, and so on. So you pretty much just read various people's thoughts on the topic, and then you have to determine who is pro and who is against it. And in the final part of the reading module, we were asked to read the instructions and rules for a board game, and then we just had to answer questions about how this game operated. I can't really remember too many specific details on this, but the questions I'm pretty sure were either true or false or multiple choice. And even though it was rather straightforward, reading the instructions was definitely one of the more challenging parts of the reading module just because of the vocabulary and the way that things were phrased. It still was relatively easier than the other parts of the test, at least in my opinion. And my best advice would just be to read as much as possible. The more you read, the better your reading comprehension will be. You can pick up some German learner series, like some I've talked about on this channel, such as Dino lernt Deutsch, Tödlicher Schnee. I was going to say Der Silberne Kugelschreiber by Angelica Bonn, but I'm realizing now that that was actually suited for a lower level. So I'm just going to recommend her book Falsche Adresse instead. And I'm sure you can find practice questions online for all of these, but the more you read and the more you try to keep track of vocabulary you don't know, the more prepared you will be for the segment. The third segment is writing, and on this segment I scored an 84, which was my highest of the 4 modules, which actually surprised me because I don't write in German very often, but I guess it kind of reflects my speaking skills when I have a little more time to think about what I'm doing grammatically and like to really think about what I'm saying and how I'm saying it before I let it out. Like sometimes I don't think so in depth about what I'm saying when I'm speaking German because I don't want to speak that slowly, so I'd rather just make the mistakes and speak fluidly than think so hard about what I'm saying that I sound like a malfunctioning robot. So anyway, I was surprised, but moving forward, this is what I remember and what you can expect. The first part of the writing module, for me at least, was a casual email that was supposed to be about 80 words long. In this email, we were given a specific topic to talk about. In this case, it was me talking about my vacation to a friend, and I'm not entirely sure I'm remembering this correctly, but I think that there were various points that I was supposed to address, such as if I would recommend the place for a vacation or not, and what I did on that vacation. Anyway, with that said, if you're writing a casual email, what you need to know is how to begin the email. So you're going to start by saying something like, if you were writing an email or a letter, you might say dear and then the name of the person you're writing to. So in this case, instead of saying dear, you would say Liebe. So let's say you're writing to your friend, you'd say Liebe Sarah, Liebe Laura, Liebe Max, Liebe Nicole, and then you would get into the subject matter that you will be writing about. So you make the points that they want you to make and make sure that you conjugate the verbs correctly, you use the correct cases, you capitalize all your nouns, and then at the end you sign it just like you would sign a letter written in English or whatever your native language is, but instead of saying sincerely or love at the end, mit freundlichen Grüßen or viele Grüße, and then of course your name. If you hit these points, I'm pretty sure that counts for a lot of getting a casual email correct. So the second part of the writing module was writing an opinion piece. At least this was the case for me. In this exercise, I just had to read a short blurb about a social issue and then write my opinion. And I can't remember if it was supposed to be 60 or 80 words, but it was something around that range. If you want to express your opinion in German, a really useful phrase that translates to in my opinion would be meiner Meinung nach, and then following that you can just talk about your opinion from there. The opinion that I was supposed to write on was whether or not a public square should begin to allow street traffic in the area or keep it pedestrian only. And really, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to write your opinion. If you don't have an opinion on this topic, then just make one up. Your opinion isn't really the point, but rather how well you express it. And other than that, just remember to conjugate correctly, use the proper cases, capitalize your nouns, and spell to the best of your ability. The final part of the writing module was writing a formal email, and I believe this was 60 words, but it may have been 80, so we'll just say from 60 to 80 words. Just like the other email and other exercise, I was given a prompt. In this one, I was supposed to write an email turning down an invitation from a neighbor. I had to come up with an excuse for why I couldn't go, but to express it in a formal manner. This is just like the casual email, except you want to start this one with sehr geehrte and then the name of the person, but instead of addressing them by first name, you would say Herr Schmidt or Herr, whatever the last name is if it's a man, or Frau Schmidt if it's a woman. And then at the end, you want to say something like, Ich freue mich von Ihnen zu hören, which means I look forward to hearing from you. And at the very end, instead of signing it sincerely, you can say something like, mit freundlichen Grüßen, or just liebe Grüße, and then your name. Now for writing practice, I would definitely recommend just looking up writing prompts for B1 online. But besides that, you should go onto an app, a language exchange app such as Tandem, where you can write to people and ask them to correct you, or even just go on ChatGPT and have a conversation with them. Even ask them to read a casual email you write and then to give you an evaluation of how you did and what you can improve. There are so many ways that you can improve your writing, but even if you just follow the basics and make sure to include all of the things that they're looking for, you will probably do just fine. And finally, we are left with speaking. Now, I'm not proud of my result on this one, but I did get a 61, which is just overpassing, which is 60. So I'm very thankful to have passed this. I was honestly surprised that I scored as low as I did, but I did freeze a lot. I was very nervous, and I'm sure I made a whole bunch of mistakes. Like my headspace the first time, and the only time I did speaking, but the first time I took this exam was just not in the right place, and I'm sure I probably could have done better with speaking had I been in a better headspace, but I have no intention of trying to retake that when I've already passed it. Even if it wasn't the score I could be the most proud of, it still warrants a certificate to pass all 4 modules, which I can say I've done. With that said, here's what you can expect on the speaking module. So the very first thing they will ask you during the speaking module is to introduce yourself in German. So make sure that you are able to introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about who you are, as well as why you are learning German and taking the B1 exam. So the first part of the speaking module is basically you have a discussion and you're paired with another student taking the test, and you get to discuss a topic that is given to you, and you're also given points that you have to address. The topic that we were given to discuss is helping a friend move, and we had to address points such as making a plan and assigning tasks to one another. Oh, you take care of packing the boxes and I'll take care of driving the truck, and you can help load the truck and we can stop at the store to get snacks, and so on. It's a pretty straightforward exercise. You just have to make sure to communicate well. And I'd say that this was a little bit challenging because it's like you have to do some improvisation along with speaking the language. If you just speak well and hit all of the points that they want you to hit, then you should do fine. In the second part, you have to give a presentation on a topic that they give you. The topic that they gave me was if kids should be allowed to dress themselves, and then they give you about 5 different points that you need to address. You want to make sure to address all of them in order. They're pretty much laying out a power presentation for you, and you're supposed to provide the opinion and then discuss your opinion according to the template that they give you. The more you follow the instructions, the happier the people grading your exam will be. And finally, the third part was that you have to ask another student questions about their presentation. So if I remember correctly, the person who I had to question, he was given the topic of should smoking be legal in restaurants or not? I'm definitely noticing a lot of reoccurring themes in these tests, such as vacations and smoking, but I digress. After, or maybe even before you ask the questions towards your partner's presentation, they will ask you questions regarding your own presentation. So don't forget everything that you had talked about just moments before too quickly, because you will have to readdress the opinions and points that you've made once again. And that is really it for what you should expect during the speaking segment. It goes relatively quickly, but if you want some ideas on how you can prepare for this, my biggest recommendation would be to get a tutor on italki. It is very easy to find all sorts of tutors, and you can ask them to help you preparing speaking practice for such an occasion. You can also just find people on language exchange sites, like I mentioned before, such as Tandem or Hello Talk, and talk with them, although it's going to be pretty hard to get strangers to prepare you for such exercises. So I think you're definitely better off with a tutor. And even if you just want to do this on your own, try making a PowerPoint presentation on a topic that you're passionate about and just practice presenting it to yourself or your dog or your bearded dragon or your pet rock, whatever's willing to listen to you. So that was definitely a challenging experience. I was very disappointed when I found out that I had to take one of the modules over again, and I got very stressed about that. But honestly, just going and taking that one module was actually quite easy the second time. I mean, I know I still didn't do wonderful, but like I didn't do too much to prepare, not nearly as much as I planned on. It ultimately wasn't that bad. And yeah, that is really it for this video. I know it's a bit of a longer one. Thank you so much if you have watched to this point. If you're interested in hearing more about language learning, German learning, goal setting in general, I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, please give it a like. Leave your comments down in the comments below, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And lots of luck if you are preparing to take the B1. You got this. Just try to prepare for it, because I really wish that I had done more to prepare for it myself. Okay, thanks. See you soon. Bye.